If you have been following the UAP topic in recent years, you probably heard the names David Grush, Jake Barber, Lou Elizondo, and Matthew Brown. Those are all government officials who have come forward in recent years alleging that rogue aspects of the US and other governments have been conspiring not only to cover up diseases as non-human intelligence, but also exploit non-human technology. Those names are most heard of, but they're not the only ones who are currently speaking out about this matter. There are several other possible whistleblowers that are getting less attention. One of those individuals is Dr. Gregory Rogers. Dr. Gregory Rogers served as NASA's chief flight surgeon and a USAF major. He worked for the Department of Defense for over 20 years. He has blown the whistle before while working at NASA when he discovered that the 90s SDS space shuttles weren't safe. He pleaded to NASA but was disregarded. This allegedly led to the Columbia Space Shuttle explosion in 2003. In July of 1992, Dr. Rogers was stationed at Cape Canaveral, Florida. He was there for what should have been a routine inspection, just another workday. Nothing out of the ordinary. But something was waiting for him, something he would never forget, something that would stay with him for the next 33 years. While walking through a hallway on the base, Dr. Rogers was approached by an Air Force major he didn't recognize. The man didn't introduce himself, but knew exactly who Rogers was. Without much explanation, the major invited him to see something Rogers hadn't asked for. He accepted, and the major led him to a specific room on the base. They entered the room. It wasn't a lab, it wasn't a secure vault, just an ordinary office. The field officer locked the door behind him and Rogers. On one side of the room, there were windows facing a nearby hallway. Without saying a word, the field officer walked over and closed the blinds. The major sat down at a computer console and powered it on. For several minutes, he worked in silence, navigating the system. After a while, Rogers asked, "Do you really need to be here for this?" The major silently replied, "Yeah, you've got to see this." After a few more keystrokes, a closed-circuit television feed appeared on the screen. The footage shows something that Rogers would never forget. Here's what he described.
It looked like an absolutely normal flight area. I was flying with the 41st Air Rescue Squadron. If you showed the hangar with my helicopter in it, it would have looked just like that, except it's not my helicopter. This thing's a flying saucer. Now then I look at this thing and my mind is going crazy. A flying saucer, are you kidding me? I would estimate that it was about 20 feet wide, probably 8 to 10 feet tall, and then it had the shallow dome on top of it. There were two guys to the bottom left, and they had on lab coats. Made me think that they're engineers. There were three guys over on the right side, I think one of them just about even, and then two up in the right side. They reminded me of technicians, because technicians were the ones who hook up the hoses, work with the gases, all this sort of stuff. And they were covered head to foot with what I would now call Tyvek suits. So they look like they're the technician types. I think I could hear people walking, maybe just like barely mumbling what they were saying, and then there was like a warning klaxon that went off, and it made this loud noise, and it's like a warning. Okay, we're beginning operations, and so everybody scattered. I'm sitting there watching this for a few minutes, and all of a sudden I hear and see these things that look like electromagnetic charges coming off around this vehicle. But there's no devices from which they're emanating. On the space shuttle, the reaction control system, you can see the jets that they're going to use for maneuvering in space. There was nothing on this flying saucer. There were no antennas. There were no flight control surfaces. Everything was very smooth and blended. I saw no rivets, no seams, nothing. It was just like if you could sort of modify an egg into this shape. That's what it looked like. There was a little area on top which had a stick coming out. I have no idea what was in this, but at the top of it were umbilical hoses, like if you were putting electricity, if you were feeding gases into it or whatever. There were 2 or 3 hoses coming down to this rod that went down into the dome that went in to the craft. So all of a sudden it just lifted up as smooth as could be. If I wasn't watching, I wouldn't have even noticed that it had moved. Once it got up maybe 3 feet above the concrete surface, it rotated completely around clockwise, 1 revolution. Then it revolved counterclockwise, 1 revolution. Now then, because of the movement, I could see what all was there. Everything was white, but there was a vertical black rectangle at the 3 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock position on the upper half of the vehicle. At the beam, there were 4 horizontal rectangles. One was from the 12:30 to 2:30 position. One was from the 3:30 to 5:30 position. One was around the other side from the 6:30 to 8:30 position. And then one was from the 9:30 to 11:30 position. I could not see the ones on the other side, but as it rotated, I could see what those were. Now, the only other thing that was present on the vehicle was at what I would call the 12 o'clock position, because it's different from everything else. And so as it ended up rotating, just above the beam, it said U.S. Air Force. Above it had the U.S. flying insignia. When I saw the markings, I just thought, oh, it's an experimental aircraft. When that thing rotated and I saw U.S. Air Force and a U.S. flight insignia, I was absolutely shocked, because this is one of ours.
Rogers turned to the Major and asked, "Why would you design something like this?" The Major pointed his thumb toward the sky and said, "We got it from them." Rogers didn't need to ask who "them" was. In that moment, it was clear he was looking at something reverse engineered from non-human technology. On the screen, the craft began to move. The maneuvers were deliberate and controlled. Then, the saucer tilted forward, the nose rising into a 45-degree angle, and yet it didn't move, it just hovered there, perfectly still. Rogers was stunned. In all his years around military aircraft, he had never seen anything behave like that, not even close. Then, a sharp knock on the door. From the hallway, a voice called out, "Hey, what's going on in there? Why is the door locked?" The Major's head snapped toward the sound. Without a word, he shut down the feed, the screen going black in an instant. He leaned in close to Rogers, his voice low and deadly serious. "Don't tell anyone I showed this to you." The Major unlocked the door. Standing outside, a lieutenant colonel and two men in crisp blue USAC uniforms. Without missing a beat, the Major said, "I had a skin lesion. I want him to check if it's okay." Roger's mind was racing. If he'd just seen something classified, something showed him off the books, he needed to get out of there. Keeping his voice calm, he nodded. "Yeah, it wasn't cancer. I've got to get back to my clinic." I am not going to do a skeptical view for this video for time purposes, but as always, apply critical thinking when looking at these claims, even when they come from someone with this type of background. However, I'm going to tell you where I stand on this. I'm going to say he's probably being truthful, but I'm not sure if he either misperceived what he saw or was tricked. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications to support my channel.